Let's begin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nitish Nanda, and I would like to welcome you all to this webinar hosted by Tech Mahindra and AWS. The topic which we are discussing today is Manage Hybrid 5G Telco Cloud. It seems to be a complex topic, maybe a complex technology as well. But overall, the idea of today's discussion is how do we simplify our networks? The networks as it is are complex, and as we move to 5G and telco cloud, the complexity is increasing. So how do we simplify our networks? That would be one of our top agendas. How do we modernize our networks? There are requirements from bandwidth perspective, from latency perspective. So how do we modernize our networks? And most importantly, how do we monetize these networks? So these would be our theme for today's discussion. Simplify, modernize, and monetize our networks. On our panel today, we have some very eminent speakers. We have Andre from the Forrester group. We have experts from Tech Mahindra and AWS, and they'll be sharing their thoughts. So looking forward to this engaging discussion. Let's keep it more collaborative, and please ask your questions. We'd like to hear your thoughts and your views on this topic as well. So without further delay, let's get into the introductions. So I'll quickly introduce our panel, and then we have a look at the agenda. So as I mentioned, we have Andre Kindness who's a principal analyst with Forrester, and he's our guest speaker today. He'll be sharing his thoughts on hybrid cloud, on edge cloud, on the move to 5G. So all those technical aspects we'll hear from Andre. I'm Nitish Nanda. I lead the core and cloud portfolio at Tech Mahindra. We have Shonil Kulkarni from AWS, who's the partner solutions and architect leader. And Shonil would be sharing his views on how AWS is helping telcos in their cloud journey and their automation journey. We have Milind Jalwadi, who's a principal consultant and leads the automation and orchestration stream at Tech Mahindra. So Milind would take us through the overall use case and the solution which we are talking about today. And finally, we have Krishna Belakonda who's the principal partner for telcos from AWS. And Krishna will talk about the overall framework which AWS developed for helping customers migrate to telco cloud and to 5G. So some very eminent speakers, and I really look forward to a very engaging discussion today. Let's quickly look at the agenda which we have, and then I'll hand it over to Andre. So we'll talk. We'll start with some industry insight updates. So these will come in from Andre. Me and Shonil would also be adding our views to it. We'll then move on to the solution overview. So we'll talk about the eCase Anywhere solution, which is being managed by netOps.ai, coming from Tech Mahindra, and how this solution will give an overview of the solution, and then move into use cases and business benefits, which this use case and solution brings in. And finally, a precursor of the demo, which we plan to show at MWC 2023, which is about 2 weeks from now. And we'll then open it up to Q&A and closing remarks. So this will be our high-level agenda. I'll straight away hand it over to Andre now for his initial thoughts and insights on this discussion. So over to you, Andre.
Thank you, Nitish. And I want to thank everybody for taking time to join this webinar, and especially I want to send a thank you to the AWS and TechM team for inviting me. You're probably wondering why me in particular. So I'm the principal analyst serving infrastructure and operations at Forrester Research, specifically within the networking arena. And most of my time is spent working with enterprises and medium-sized companies out there, especially when it comes to networking and transforming their network and taking best practices from that and sharing with other companies out there. And I think the team invited me to speak in this way to give you a perspective on what we're seeing from Forrester on what's happening within the edge, specifically when it's coming from the communication service providers out there and what they're seeing from their clients or what their challenges are. So I'm not going to speak very long. We have a lot to cover today. So I'm just going to kind of give you a quick market overview of what's happening out there, about maybe 5 to 10 minutes, 4 or 5 slides on that aspect itself. And to do that, let's kind of go into the next slide. I'm not going to show you, growth numbers, on certain areas. I think it's irrelevant to you on, adoption of or perspective on growth and charts in that way. What is really important and what's transforming the world around us is what's happening in this kind of image. And it represents not just the retail industry itself. It could be healthcare, it could be manufacturing, it could be other hospitality industries out there. But what I'm trying to convey in this picture itself is this digital transformation that's happening. And I know it's a big buzzword that everybody's using, but if we really think about the realities of that, this is where companies make their revenue or serve their customers or retain their customers in this area, right at the edge of their business, that engagement point with their customers and delivering the products and services in there. And it could be inside of a car. So it doesn't have to be a building itself. But the fact is that the technology that's being enabled to serve that customer wherever they're at and give them what they need wherever they're at and at that moment of need itself. And so we think about that as being that all these technologies and specifically, infrastructure or IoT or Internet of Things, every mechanical electrical device now being connected to this network to be able to respond and provide them the services that they need or the information that someone needs or the products at that point in time that gets even carried over to cars or even to the household itself. But this transitional point is such a fundamental piece that's changing in the world around us. Historically, the last 20 years, we've talked a lot about data centers, maybe even cloud, or, the excitement was, Wi-Fi in the campus area itself. But over the next 20 years, there's going to be so much happening at this edge points within the companies itself. And this is a part I want to bring up is as we go into the next slide, it's not just one thing happening. And we saw in the data center, it was, server virtualization, or we thought about, cloud or certain things. But in the next slide, you'll start to see that there's multiple things starting to occur within this area itself. If we go into the next slide, Nitish, that you'll see kind of 3 things happening. One of them is, and I brought up already about Internet of Things and the adoption levels of that's a supporting of the transformation. The 2 pieces I really want to focus in is that middle area, that edge compute area. And the reason why I wanted to kind of lay this out a little bit is the fact is we talk about in such a generic way, but edge itself can be, in many different ways, in many different languages, thought of about in different ways. And we've grouped them up into 4 areas. There's the kind of core enterprise edge, and that's really, that kind of campus or colo locations, kind of where the fundamental pieces of technology and resources sit within the business itself. And then we start to see that the enterprise edge, extends into further to where the customers are starting to appear at. And, we think about sales offices or we think about, R&D centers as we start to shift. And there could be edge in that area when we think about edge compute and what actually occurs in there. And then we start to really move closer to where the customer's at. And it could be this operations edge. And what people think about, automatically maybe is technology. But really, this is the area where we think about like the retail store inside of a car, inside of a manufacturing plant, where you have the operations of the business itself and the compute and information and technology and the storage and Internet of Things that are occurring in this area to serve and to develop and to create the services or create the products that someone needs. And this is important itself as I bring into the next piece of it in this engagement edge is actually the products or services itself, where it could be there or it could be actually delivered in someone's house or in someone's car itself. But the interesting piece about this is we think about the enterprise edge, or we think the operations edge, or we think about the engagement edge or the core enterprise edge, is that there's a fundamental thing that goes across all of them, and then that's the service providers providing connectivity, providing compute, and providing, providing compute area and storage within each one of these areas itself. And we think about, that multi access occurring, these pop centers, whether it's in each one of them, which then also leads me to the right-hand side of the slide. If you haven't switched over to Twitter, or you're still, listening, but looking at the slides, then we start to bring in this other type of thing that makes it happen, is engagement, this connectivity that starts to happen. And we're seeing that 5G itself, and you look at the adoption levels of 76 are planning to use it, 5G itself planning to use it or implement it, adopt it in this area itself. And it could be public and the private aspect of 5G. And this is what the CSP industry is really looking at, is this edge compute, this engagements and helping clients in this area. And in fact is enabling it through connectivity itself. And that piece of it, changing the fundamental way it's happening to be able to deliver, as I mentioned that previous slide, this very fundamental change that's going on with what customers are delivering or getting and what businesses are delivering in this area itself. Natisha, as we go into the next slide, if we start to think about it, it's not all what's happening inside that car or inside that building, whether it be a manufacturing plant or acute care center or a retail area or even a hotel room itself. Is the fact is all these technologies are really dependent on the back end. And what this back end is this hybrid cloud world itself. So you have these connections. So 5G delivering the connectivity and being mobile and changing wherever it's occurring at. But the services that fly across it is not from one location anymore, and not one easy design, but it's a fabric of connections to these back-end systems and resources and information to serve it. So we start to see, whether it be SaaS or infrastructure as a service or backup as a service, pushing data, collecting data, doing analysis around it to be able to synthesize and change and affect the Internet of Things devices or the employees that are serving them and delivering the right information in this area. When we think about a company like a Best Buy or electronics retailer in Europe, you start to see that these environments are not just delivering information on pricing or delivering information about a particular product. But interesting enough, you start to see that these demos, when it comes to smart home, that whether it be a Samsung or whether it be a Train or delivering HVAC and a thermostat and doing a demo with that, or curtains opening and closing within a demo area with this electronics store, is that there's multiple things happening across these links, all coming from different resources, and not just infrastructure, but businesses itself to deliver the experience within the store, to show off something to someone that's buying it. So you have a collection of these hybrid types of resources and this hybrid cloud delivering on it. Now, as Nitish goes into the next slide, is we have to fundamentally realize that it's not about what we've seen in the past of delivering, to the employees information about CRM or doing a PowerPoint slide or something like that, but that we're taking information from Internet of Things, a device, a sensor, or changing the lighting, but it's predicated on, being able to analyze it and use artificial intelligence to make the decisions, to improve the experiences, to make guesses and analyze the situation to ensure that a fault doesn't occur, whether it be a connection or a fault doesn't occur in the lighting system, or the analysis being that a customer, based on what they've done before, can be served up in a different area or a different thing within the store itself. Or we think of a hospital and making an analysis of what's going on in there from the contractors and from the nurses and from the doctors, being able to provide the right service within these areas. And so interesting enough is that it's becoming very complex world than we've seen in the past. It's not generic technology anymore. We think about the factory and the AI that needs to go into, the drone and the robotics locations within the factory and where supplies are at, and having that data and using, hybrid cloud to synthesize this to make the right things within the factory itself. And I've mentioned retail, but then we think about healthcare and real-time patient assessment, or the fact is insights within the patients itself is not all being done in the hospital, but the resources from the hybrid cloud, whether it be SaaS-based or infrastructure or a combination, and using AI in that to synthesize the right things to deliver on it. And so if we think about each one of those pieces, it's a very different and more complex world where things are not generic anymore, that the services that need to be provided by the CSPs have to be very verticalized and very unique to each one of them, and combining them together to deliver on that. So as we kind of go into the next slide itself, these are some of the challenges that I see from the service provider industry. As Nitish goes into the next slide, we'll come up with a list of these issues and challenges that need to be addressed for service providers to deal with this new emerging world. Because the realities are, is if I didn't harp on slide 3 enough, is that the CSPs are integrated in each part of the edges out there and enabling to happen. And as they get closer to the customer, it becomes more verticalized and unique. And when we think about 5G and we think about AI and we think about these resources, being able to bring them together. And so a lot of CSPs are challenged internally by being able to get to market quicker, because there's expectations from the businesses out there that they have to respond, because customers in the world around them already have information and have these expectations that they have online of getting things when they want, wherever they're at, to happen inside that building, within that car itself, within that vehicle, within that aircraft, that the services or the expectations has to be instantaneous. And there's that requirement from the CSPs to deliver the technology in that way itself. But to be able to do it, you have to have the tools, you have to have the infrastructure to enable it to happen. And so a lot of this is predicated on being able to shift forward and bring in partners and leverage the technology out there to make it happen. And so what I would like to do is bring Nitish and Shanil into this conversation and start off with, asking them a question around, when we think about addressing these key challenges that I see from the CSPs, I'm hearing from the CSPs out there, is, for example, AWS is pushing the envelope, right? And when we think about what the CSPs itself is, how does AWS help, achieve the full potential of 5G? And also, why is the partnership with TechM important to drive this? Shanil, would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take this and hope you can hear me. I mean, first of all, I'm attending this webinar from my car. Is power of 5G, right? This is a grand example as to how 5G is helping customers like me. I can be anywhere and still attend the webinars on, turn on my video and be effective as if I am in the conference room. Coming to the question, in terms of AWS, how we are helping CSPs is, if you look at AWS's global network, we have 31 launch regions, 4 more regions are in making. We have over 99 availability zones, 410 plus edge locations, in addition to 32 wavelength zones that are exclusively designed for communication service providers, and 29 local zones, bringing AWS infrastructure to at the doorsteps of communication service providers where we don't have a launch region. And over 200 plus fully featured services across compute, storage, databases, networking, security, IoT. So you have, Andre, emphasized on IoT, IIoT, and how, to monetize 5G, how IoT, analytics, security, and networking plays a vital role. So AWS has a matured set of services, a stack of services across networking, security, analytics, IoT, and of course, topping it off with AI and ML services to really help CSPs bring the operational efficiency, flexibility, scalability. So basically, AWS brings those most advanced secure cloud services. And then the other important part is we have the deepest telecom partner ecosystem, and one of our partner, Tech Mahindra, is here, right? So we are helping, AWS is helping CSPs with the fastest rate of innovation, enabling them to cloudify their business and differentiate at every stage of the customer journey, right? And so together, in partnership with the CSPs and partners like Tech Mahindra, we are really innovating, building new joint GTM models that unlocks growth, monetize 5G, and diversify core telco offerings essentially reimaging the customer experience, simplifying operations, building secure and scalable software-driven networks. Our objective, AWS's objective, is to help CSPs bring efficiency, flexibility, manageability, and maintainability in their telco cloud and hybrid cloud operations via automation, orchestration, transformation, using CI/CD, containerization of 5G workloads with AWS cloud native services like managed services like Amazon ECS, Amazon EKS service family, including EKS Anywhere, Fargate serverless clusters, Red Hat OpenShift on AWS. Now, coming to partnership with Tech Mahindra. Tech Mahindra is our premier partner. And on top of that, TechM's proven industry recognized telecom expertise that helps bring a scale to the larger complex greenfield and brownfield 5G network transformations. Really helps AWS we want to go and help our CSPs deploy that multi-vendor complex ecosystem, bring it together, run the market trials, and then commercially roll out those networks in smaller geographies or larger geographies like United States. Tech Mahindra is, like I said, AWS premier partner. They have over 2,000 AWS certified employees. They have a mature AWS telco practice. They have several AWS competencies across migration and application modernization, managed service provider. They have over 10 service delivery partner designations. That really enabled TechM to be our lead SI and delivery partner in various strategic global cloud transformation opportunities with some of the leading tier 1, tier 2 operators across the globe. We also have a strategic collaboration agreement with Tech Mahindra for telecom industry, where we have jointly built managed telco cloud operations offerings, leveraging our jointly developed automation, orchestration, operations, and management platform to accelerate telecom service providers' journey to AWS cloud. And we're really driving joint innovation together that you will shortly get to know in this session. Over to you, Nitish.
Yeah, this is Andre. Sunil, I appreciate that. I know that AWS has such a wide, footprint through the globe itself and sites to enable some of this happen. And Nitish, I wanted to ask about TechM. It's been a strategic partner for a lot of the telcos out there. I've worked with you guys for the last probably 10, 12 years since I've been at Forrester. So what do you see from some of the challenges CSPs are facing in migrating to 5G? And I'm going to flip it on you for what Sunil said. So why AWS, and what do they bring to the helping the telcos out there?
Yeah, sure, Andre, thanks. And I think Shonil spoke almost everything which I had, which I wanted to speak. So yeah, but no. So I think the point about the challenges which CSPs are facing today with as they move to 5G, and we are in a lot of these discussions. So I would like to share some of those insights. So I think a few of those points you already have on the slide. So first is the time to market question. So I think that is of real essence for any CSP. So I mean, as you move to 5G, everybody wants to bring in all the latest 5G use cases as early as possible to the market. And when we are saying 5G use cases, we are not talking about eMBB. The real use cases are the URLLC latency sensitive use cases, or the IoT use cases, which are not even there yet, right? So those are the use cases which will realize the real potential of 5G, and getting faster time to market is critical in that space. But how do you do that? To have a faster time to market, a lot of changes would be needed in the network. You need changes on the RAN side, on the core, on the transport. And what is most important is in fact, everything needs to be virtualized and cloudified. So, and different CSPs are in different journeys, different stages of the journey as of now in their cloudification and virtualization aspect. But that is a journey which every CSP has to take, right? To accelerate their time to market. Another important aspect which would come in is the automation part. As you virtualize and cloudify and containerize your network, you will not be able to manage those networks manually the way you have been doing earlier. So the need for automation will kick in, and that is that in itself will decide how fast you can bring new use cases and new applications to market to your customers. So time to market is of essence, but a lot of changes needed in the network to achieve that. The other challenge which we also hear a lot in our discussions is challenges which CSPs see in moving to cloud, right? And I would say there are different phases to it. Phase one is the virtualization part. More or less, most of the CSPs are already there at phase one, where most or at least some part of their network is already virtualized. So the core maybe is virtualized, RAN still in the virtualization is ongoing. Transport, we can say, will still take some more time, right? So most of them are at phase one. We are starting to see the phase two of this journey, which is where there is a need to scale these cloud-based networks very fast, as you talked about the move to edge and far edge. So that would really need a scaling the footprint of these cloud locations, and at the same time, with the applications coming in, each data center also needs to scale in and scale out very fast. So that scaling and elastic, you'll need some kind of a very elastic solution, and which will be needed to scale in and scale out these networks. There is a need for move to cloud native to get the benefits of use cases such as slicing and all. What is another important topic which is coming up is most of the current networks are on-prem based, right? They started as public as private cloud on-prem based. However, to achieve this kind of scaling and to bring in the operational efficiencies, so there is a need to move to public cloud providers with the solutions which AWS is bringing in. Very clearly, that need is coming through. However, there is also a dilemma which they face. There is about security of their network, about sovereignty issues and all. So a solution is needed which is able to an elastic solution which is able to scale the on-prem data centers, still being on without having to change the hardware, still being on bare metal servers there on-prem, while providing a migration to public cloud as well. So that is another clear need which we are seeing, and that is where this concept of hybrid cloud, where you can have some of your critical part latency and security sensitive critical part of your network on-prem, while moving some of your other parts to public cloud. So that concept of hybrid cloud is coming in. And this is also what we'll be discussing today as part of the solution which we bring forward with AWS. And once, as you move to hybrid cloud, it is also not easy, because it needs a lot of automation because you are managing workloads which are on-prem, you're managing workloads which are on cloud, on public cloud, and you then need to achieve fast deployments, automated rollout of the networks. All of those aspects needs a lot of automation to kick in. So this then also goes with our solution which we have, which we'll be talking about today, which is what we are saying as managed hybrid telco cloud. So it's a hybrid telco cloud underlying. However, it is completely managed and completely automated. It has the benefits of, brings in the benefits of DevOps and CI/CD, brings in complete orchestration of your network functions to enable fast scale and scale out, brings in the benefits of observability and assurance, automated testing of network functions. So all those automations are already built into this solution, which is the hybrid managed hybrid cloud solution which we have. So So basically, I hope I was able to touch upon the challenges which the CSPs are facing and how we, Tech Mahindra, working with AWS, is trying to mitigate some of those challenges. We have a very strong relationship with AWS. Shonil already talked about it. Multiple ongoing engagements and and the idea is to come up with new bold solutions and bring them to market to solve to simplify the networks and modernize the networks. From Tech Mahindra perspective, we are in the system integrator domain, system integration domain since a while. Our main expertise is on the telco side, and be it migration of networks from 4G to 5G, migration of networks from virtualized to containerized networks, automation of the networks, bringing operational efficiencies with AI ML. So all those complex technologies and multi-vendor and multi-cloud kind of scenarios, all of this is what Tech Mahindra brings in expertise to simplify and modernize. So yeah, so I think those were my thoughts primarily on the challenges currently being faced by CSPs and how Tech Mahindra are working with it to mitigate some of those.
That's great. So
Yeah,
I think, I think the team was going to show some case studies to support that. Would that be correct, Nitish?
Yeah. So we would. We have Krishna and Milind who will be talking about this solution which we have in more detail and the kind of benefits which it brings to everyone.
Right.
Yeah, over to you, Krishna.
Thank you, Nitish. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yep. So, Vaibhav, can we start with the first slide, please? Good day, all. I am Krishna, and I lead the telco solutions globally for our strategic relationship with partnership, rather, with Tech Mahindra at AWS. So one of the key needs which we wanted to address, or our charter, like what Nitish alluded to, was to leverage the AWS strengths and the Tech Mahindra's scale to simplify the complexities of the cloud transformation, right, at our customers. Because it's not just the cloud transformation, the networks are open, are getting more open, they are disaggregated. So how do you build a blueprint on AWS using, for instance, multiple vendors? How do you simplify the complexity? This is one of the challenges we set out to solve for our customers. And who are our customers, right? The customers are today, typically it is the CSPs. We also have the MVNOs. We also buy and also enterprises, to what Andre was mentioning. By extension, there's a digital transformation happening. It is mostly application driven. Network is more used as an appliance. So we wanted to create a common framework which adapts to all these customer needs. And we wanted to, it's not just a directional framework which stays on slides. We wanted to start implementing it and incrementally evolve it as we progress, right? So so that is the primary motivation for AWS to partner with Tech Mahindra to build this framework. So specifically on the framework piece, the whole motivation was to actually realize it using the Tech Mahindra's automation framework as well. So this is a framework which is delivered by Tech Mahindra. So next slide, Vaibhav. So I'll explain the key. Next slide, we'll go through what are our tenets, right? AWS, we work using tenets. And there are 3 tenets we wanted to explore and emphasize for this framework. And the first one being efficiency, right? And we want to lead with efficiency. And this is one of the main reasons, one of the key strengths of AWS, in addition to the fact that we have a global network, right? And part of that efficiency tenet is that we wanted to focus on 3 things, right? So today, when we're talking about any brownfield or any brownfield environment, so it's not like you can just take a workload which is virtualized and deployed on the cloud, because they're probably quite unwieldy and they might use a lot of resources. That is a possibility, but we wanted to not stop there, but we wanted to leverage the the strengths of AWS and the test framework which we have built with Tech Mahindra to actually right-size the instances. So getting the resources to an optimal resource footprint has been a very key initiative and a guiding principle for our framework. And the reason why, and there are multiple ways you can do this, and one of the ways we work with is that we try to right-size the instances with our ISV partners to different SKUs, right? Like if whether it's a T-shirt sizing, or we test it with test framework so that it works for like 100 users or 1,000 users or 1 million users, right? So we have the ability to build that type of test automation framework which can be leveraged to the right sizing. Now that it's right sized, we also want to leverage the native scaling capabilities of AWS, right? Whether it be in EKS or if you're using Elasticache, how do we use our managed services which are more the serverless model of deployments? How can we leverage the pay-as-you-go model of the AWS for a network function? So these are the two areas where we feel like there's a lot of work which needs to be done, and we have been emphasizing on that as well. And then the third part is, now that you have a right size, which is right size for your deployment, for a customer's deployment, and it is being scaled, where do you place it, right? So we also focus on the right placement. And for that, we also build the telemetry, bring the telemetry, get the intelligence, and also the requirements of the customer, whether it be data sovereignty needs or like based on where the customer is located globally. How do we dynamically place user plane functions, for instance, UPF, based on the needs of the end application as well. So we also focus on the placement. So in effect, we try to focus on the right sizing, right time, and right place for our workloads, so that you're running as efficiently as possible. So this is the AWS strength we bring to the framework. And we use Tech Mahindra. We are partnering with Tech Mahindra to build out the solution. On the second pillar, or the second tenet, which is flexibility, where this is a combination of both AWS and Tech Mahindra strengths, right? Because the way, like we discussed, like I think there was discussions about hybrid cloud, there are multiple modalities which exist today in terms of deploying, or in terms of network, as a whole, right? You have on-premises network, on-premises private cloud. You have edge, multiple edge modalities. You have different container services. So how do we bridge the gap, right? How are we able to provide a solution which can cater to a modernization story or a migration story from your existing deployments? Or how do we have a model where we can deploy to the needs of the particular region, like I discussed previously, the dynamic placement. So we needed a solution which can bridge those gaps and also use the AWS cloud continuum all the way from cloud to the edge way more effectively. So this is the part where we provide the flexibility with the solution, where you're able to work across modalities. Then you have the deployment models, where we want to provide as much flexibility as possible, because as we said, as Andre mentioned, network is in the process of becoming an appliance. If it is an appliance and you're focusing on applications, so in that scenario, the name of the game those scenarios would be the end-to-end network deployed in the most efficient manner possible, which could be a curated network which is built off a blueprint from our initiative here. Or, in that case, you're just simplifying the complexity of managing a network, and you're just running your application on top of the network. Or there is another deployment model where it could be modular, right? So some CSP wants to transform parts of their network. Then in that case, we wanted to provide a deployment model that would cater to it. And another model is for MVNOs. For instance, if they want to run PGW as a service, or if they want to run network components as a service, we also wanted the framework to provide a deployment model. And all of this needs to be done with a single construct or a singular model, as opposed to doing and creating a solution across multiple problem domains. That's why we decided to invest in the framework and focus on certain areas which will help us scale. And the last but not the least ties together the efficiency and the flexibility. And that's where we're trying to drive towards a consumption-based, more consumption-driven model, which is the benefit of the cloud, right? Because not all network functions are technically consumption-driven from the beginning. So you have to cater to the needs of cost. You have to have a trade-off between the resources, which is cost and which also contributes to cost and sustainability. And it trades off against performance and resilience. How do we manage these three dimensions, right? Cost, performance, and efficiency in a way that we can have a low footprint and we can provide benefits of scale and cost to the customer. So we are exploring multiple options. We'll show you how we are doing it in certain ways, how we are leveraging SaaS models in our solution to benefit that. And so, as I said, the efficiency is the AWS strength, flexibility is a joint strength. And then we come down to the manageability and maintainability part, where TechM has very extensive experience. They are in all, in a large, they have a large presence in all the tier 1 operators. And their experience working across multiple vendors, multiple network functions, we are working together to build this normalized management paradigms for this multi-vendor, multi-network function, multiverse, if you will, and trying to provide a common deployment model across all these domains. You can think of this as the service orchestrator, as the beginnings of a service orchestrator, because we are working towards that. It's still in the early stages, but that is the model we want to double up with Tech Mahindra and leverage their existing strength. The next one is the Telco Dev Test Ops, which is the lifecycle management, orchestration of the workloads, and how we manage these workloads on the cloud. And we also kind of, I think it was not mentioned here, but what we are also trying to do is build this model of dev test performance operations. Because like I mentioned, if you have to do a right sizing and you want to test your workload against for 100 users versus 10,000 users versus 1 million users, there needs to be a test routine which manages the software life cycles and also tests against different software versions. So this we feel is a very key area where netOps.ai and netOps.ai contributes to the larger solution, but netOps.ai started off with the dev test ops, and we trying to double up and make sure that we extend the capabilities across the the test and the performance aspects as well. And the last but not the least is the single-threaded operations, right? Now, there is two aspects to single-threaded operations. One is the observability, which is not bound. Now that you're managing a disaggregated network, which is spread across multiple network functions and across multiple vendors, you want to have a single pane of glass, right? And that is easier said than done, but we also have to ensure, if you're using the same network, probably you can use the same constructs. But the fact here is that you want to leverage the openness and the distributed nature of the network or the vendors, and you want to provide a single pane of glass. So this is where TechM has innovated in building adapters, which can bring all the data from different vendors together into a single pane of glass. The same thing applies for your southbound. How do you control the network as well? And this is the aspect where we combine the service orchestrators and also we work with the ISVs very closely to ensure that their MOPs are all adapted to a normalized standard, so that like you have the ability to observe the network and you have the ability to control the network. So you address both using the single-threaded modes of operations. Now, all of this the beauty of this is that you can leverage the maintainability and manageability aspects as a solution which can be deployed at an operator into their existing network operations, or we also are looking at possibilities where TechM manages multiple NOCs. So how can we scale or build a common NOC construct which can also expand into different customers, right? Especially in the enterprise network scenario. So that's our guiding tenets, and these are the areas we focus on. And now, how do we realize it, or what does the framework look like? Next slide, please, is what we'll discuss in the next slide. So as we discussed, if you look at the center portion, the tenets we mentioned kind of translate into a 3-layer approach. When the layer 1 is the hybrid cloud hybrid telco cloud management, where we are managing the infrastructure, where we are managing the containers and so on, container services, and we are leveraging also the best practices from AWS, especially in terms of constructs which are used which has been used in multiple deployments, right? So that's the layer one, where we manage the hybrid cloud and the modalities of the hybrid telco cloud. The second layer is the telco workload ecosystem. So if I translate the right size, right place, right time, the bottom layer would be the right placement. We have the instrumentation for the right placement so that we can be very efficient with our deployments, or we cater to the needs of the customer. And the second layer is the telco workload ecosystem, where we right-size the instances. And right-sizing the instances is very critical aspect of integrating a workload as well. So we focus on that in the layer 2. And in the layer 3, we decide we bring together all the telemetry data together, and we also have the control plane to provide the placements or change the configurations of the workloads in real time based on the intelligence. So that's what we call as the self-organizing telco operations layer, or SOTO as we call it is short. So that's our framework, and it's not just a framework. We have also innovated this framework with our partners, and we have integrated. We are in the process of incubating it and testing it for the performance. And way we realize it is with the labs we have built with Tech Mahindra across the globe, with the main lab being in Seattle and Nagpur. And we have built an end-to-end solution with our ISV partners, which goes all the way from radios all the way to the order management of an application or a private network. And the reason and the use cases obviously are the private networks. We address the problem of multi-tenancy. We also address the telco cloud for MVNOs or MVSOs, because we do feel that there is a gap now where a lot of MVNOs want to move to the cloud, want to move a part of their network to the cloud, and that is part where we are looking at we cater the telco cloud to their requirements as a service, for instance. And we're also looking forward to this slice operators. We are also preparing ourselves for that, right? And the last one is the edge first, right? How do we build applications that can trigger the network? How do we adapt to the industry 4.0 use cases? How do we let the edge drive the network, or edge like an application drive the instantiation of the network? We'll be demonstrating parts of this functionality in MWC using our existing end-to-end cloud. So those are the use cases we are focusing on. And obviously on the delivery side, as I mentioned, it can be an end-to-end or a modular network. It can be fully managed, or parts of it can be as a service. And our, and the part where you see a little grade is that our ambition or aspiration is to make telco as an appliance so that you can run vertical services. There's one more slide. I'll just, can you go to the next slide, Vaibhav? I'll just touch upon it. This can be referred to later. I don't really have time, but what I would like to highlight here is how we are realizing the solution with Tech Mahindra, how we are extracting the best practices from AWS. If you see in the bottom, we are using the automation services which AWS has used in deployments like Dish. We use them as well, and also the fact that we are able to bring your existing deployments on other container services as well into the AWS ecosystem. And obviously the whole end-to-end view of how we have built the network, and how, and our as I mentioned before, we also have a model to integrate with SaaS providers so that we bring the cost envelope down. And on the left-hand side, you can see the managed services part of Tech Mahindra, which ties into this framework and is able to, so that we can deliver a full end-to-end solution. I will hand it over at this point. I think we have a lot more to discuss, but I'll hand it over to Milind, who from Tech Mahindra, who is our partner. Thank you.
Thanks, Krishna. This is Milind here. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, Milind, you are.
Thanks, Nitish. Okay, thanks to all the speakers. I think that has really made my job easy. I think most of the things have been touched upon. So I'll only concentrate on the NetOps framework, the architecture, the blueprint, and we'll discuss more on that. So this slide is just to add that the automation complexity in a hybrid cloud scenario is tremendous, because lots of various cloud deployments will have to be managed, and it's not very easy to just design, deploy, manage a hybrid cloud with so many instances, from a single solution or a single pane of glass. Plus, lots of cloud solutions or the stacks that our ISVs bring in, they also give various, they also have various automation. So there are various islands of automation. So all of this has to be tied up intelligently, and we need to provide actually in hyper automation to deploy the hybrid cloud and to manage the workload instances. So NetOps framework is actually all is going to address this, and this slide is just talking about few of those challenges that NetOps addresses. So it being a complex network, there are multiple VNFs, there would be multiple edge solutions, because based on what workload has to be there on the edge, the cloud solution, like even from AWS perspective, there are multiple edge solutions that are available. So all of this multi-class, multicast, multi-cloud, multi-vendor kinds of scenarios have to be addressed, along with ensuring that all the network functions are properly instantiated in a proper order. Krishna was talking about the right placement, and after right placement, it is about all about automating the configurations, having the network connectivity between the various clouds, within the cloud, and all end-to-end service should be up and operational. So that's what NetOps is bringing in. So Vaibhav, if we move to the next slide. So in essence, this is trying to define what NetOps is. So NetOps is a DevOps-based continuous automation and continuous orchestration platform. So the whole platform is is operated in a DevOps manner. So you have all of those continuous automation and continuous orchestration aspects. So which just implies that there is least or no manual intervention, and through a design time policy based mechanism, you can configure, or you can create the policies on how the runtime events have to be managed, on how in runtime, if some new artifact, vendor artifact is there, or any configuration change is there, or even from a operation standpoints, if there are any events, alarms, how those have to be tackled, and how in an continuous orchestration mechanism, that network could be self-corrected, deployed, reconfigured, so that whatever the service it is providing, that is uninterrupted. So TOPS is a platform to achieve that. And quickly, a few of those things that it is providing is coordination of the containerized telco workload. So it knows what workloads to place where, based on the use case that it is being that has to be achieved. It also is able to act upon the events from the infra, from the cache layer, from the application layer. It is able to correlate it, and it is able to take some decisions out of it, both in a predictive, an analytical and predictive way. It also offers a single pane of glass for observability. It is also capable of putting the analytics at the edge, so that there is a level of some decisions are being taken at the edge itself before centrally it is getting managed on the correction mechanism. So in short, NetOps offers a complete automated solution for managing the hybrid cloud. It enables the intelligent operations, and moreover, it keeps a consistent automation framework. So whether it's any edge solution, any edge implementation, or a regional or a central cloud implementation, the network functions that are part of it, all of that, it is a consistent automation framework that will bring the infra part, and all this is achieved through a single API or a single click kind of deployments. Maybe if we could move ahead. Thanks. So this is the solution blueprint of NetOps. What you see below is the typical deployment that you have. So typically, for the hybrid cloud and for all the use cases that we talked about, in this session, for that to realize the network will have to be multi-site. So there would be far edge, near edge, regional DCs, central DCs. And the CSPs would have a combination because there are lots of private cloud deployments still on. So those private deployments are still at the being a monolithic network right now. It is at the central or regional DC level, but CSPs are exploring solutions from the edge solutions from even AWS. So there are various workloads that could be placed, and there could be various cloud solutions that could be in these different data centers. And then all of this, the middle layer is what the DevOps way of operations is, that I just talked about. So continuous change management, continuous orchestration. You also need a continuous testing way where you could test the infra, you could test the cache, you could test the network functions, certify the network functions, and able to process the FMPM data in a policy driven way. So that is the DevOps way that it offers. And the above layer is typically the services that it gives, like bare. You could have an EKS, a CAS deployment. You could have NF certifications. NetOps can create a multi-domain end-to-end service and deploy for the use cases. It can do all of those validations, and it also has the intelligent operations and hyper automation facility. In interest of time, I'll just go ahead so that we cover everything. Vaibhav, I think if you could go ahead. Any has the slide gone ahead, or I have any
Milind, it's
timing
already
issue? I
moved.
don't know. Okay, sorry. I think I have a timing issue. Yeah, so this again tells about typically with AWS, few of the AWS services that it has.
So, Milind, I guess there is some. Yeah, there seems to be some issue on Milind's side, but I think we are almost through the slides which we wanted to show. This slide talks about the use cases and the business benefits. Some of it we already talked about. So mainly from a use case perspective, hybrid cloud deployments, unified management using a combination of netOps.ai and EKS Anywhere from AWS, edge enabled use cases, hyper automation, and edge analytics with AI/ML. So these are some of the use cases which this solution brings in, and benefits we have already covered, but faster deployment and faster time to market, protecting and optimizing CapEx, data sovereignty from basically keeping your sovereign data still on-prem. So that is a big advantage, which most CSPs are looking for. A reduction in OPEX with by utilizing your existing hardware, and new and latency-sensitive 5G use cases. So these are the benefits and the use cases. So with this, I would we are almost on time. But we would be happy to go maybe 5 minutes over and have some of your questions if there are any, and quickly answer those. So the floor is open for any questions which you have. No questions?
Hi, Nitish. Some of the questions are coming on the chat.
Okay, so yeah, can somebody take those? Can somebody read those out? Weber, can you read those
Yeah.
out quickly?
Can you mention specific CSPs that are being included here?
Yeah, so Scott. Multiple CSPs, the discussions are ongoing. As I mentioned, CSPs are in different phases and different parts of their cloudification journey. Between AWS and TechM, we already have Dish as one of our main customers, where we both the organizations are engaged. And yeah, apart from that, there are other multiple other CSPs where discussions are ongoing, and hybrid cloud is very clearly coming out as one of the main delivery area going forward. Yeah, Weber, any other questions we have on the chat?
Other than that, there's one Guru Raj who had raised his hand. I have unmuted him. If he wants to ask.
Can we get some about multi-access edge deployment? So, Guraj, can you be a bit more specific? Multi-access edge. So, when you say multi-access, what exactly you're looking for? Okay, MEC deployments. Yes. So, I think this is MEC is very clearly a use case we are seeing coming up very fast. So, most of your edge deployments will have applications, both telco as well as non-telco applications. Now, to host those telco plus non-telco applications on the edge, you will need to have a defined platform, which is the MEC specifications brings in that common platform, which can be which will then be able to host applications on the edge location. So this is really this is going forward from a telco edge perspective. This will be one of the most important aspects, and we are already seeing discussions coming up on the MEC side of things. Krishna or Andre, Milind, anybody, if you want to add to that part.
Yeah, so we are also, one of the things we are focusing on is the relevance of the co-placement between MEC and user plane, and we are probably working. We are in the process of working with a few edge, the MEC providers, especially in the video, applications domain. And we are also looking at how that can be integrated into the edge solutions which AWS has. So it's also coming up from a customer need as well, where the PMEC and the user plane needs to be co-located, and they need to be managed from a centralized plane. So there are some solutions which we are working on at this time, not specifically the applications essentially are primarily driven by the needs of the customer specifically. Yeah. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks, Krishna. There's a question from Neeraj. Can you please list some enterprise use cases that this architecture can deliver immediately aside connectivity? Yeah, so all your edge and far edge use cases, Neeraj, can be handled by this framework. So it's a hybrid cloud framework. So your edge locations can be on-prem, right? And most of the use cases from an edge perspective, be it, for example, enterprise ERP use cases, or cloud gaming, or AR, VR, or video analytics. So any of these use cases can be handled via the solution which we just talked about. Also, just to note, so this the same solution is valid for both telco edge as well as private edge applications, right? So even if any enterprise is looking for setting up a private edge network, a private 5G network. So the same managed hybrid telco cloud solution would be able to cater to that as well.
Just to add to Nitish, Neeraj, I think one of the primary use cases we are trying to also solve is the multi-tenancy problem. So, for instance, if an enterprise or a CSP has an enterprise private, is providing it to like something like a port, and the port has multiple tenants, it's a use case where the tenants have their own. So it's more like a B2B2X type of a model. That is something we are working on for a particular CSP whom we are working with, right? So that is a specific use case where we are able to build a network which caters to the specific use case. If you're looking at the edge use cases, as we said, we are looking at some video application which can leverage the connectivity. So there are multiple angles we are looking at this problem from, but we are trying to solve the issues of like if I have a multi-tenant network, which needs to be the case if I'm running multiple applications or multiple slices, how do we solve the problem? How do we solve the charging problem? How do we solve the ordering problem? So we are trying to address those first. We are putting the foundation first, and then so that it can be adaptable to any applications you might have. Hope that answered your question, Neeraj. Just wanted to add a clarification, add addendum there.
Yeah, thanks, Krishna. There's a question from Atul. So any live reference in APAC geo, and how do we take this GTM proposition to telcos in India, both for 5G rollout and for enterprises? Yeah, the second part is easier, so I'll take that. So, we can. This is a ready solution today, and available for any kind of POCs or demos which we want to do with any of our customers. So, between Tech Mahindra and AWS, we already also have this going in our lab, in Tech Mahindra lab. So, taking it to any telcos in India or outside India. So all those possibilities are available, and you can contact us and we can take that forward. Live references in APAC, some very advanced level discussions ongoing. We'll not be able to talk about it on this call. They're not announced yet. So, but hopefully soon we'll be able to talk more about them. I hope that answers, Atul. Yeah, so question from Narasimhan is, are the SDN included in the architecture? Yes, and no, in the sense that SDN would play at a higher level. So this is more from a NFVI perspective, VNF and NFVI perspective. SDN would play more at a high level higher than this, and NetOps has the capability to talk to the SDN network, be it from a WAN networking perspective or from a domain orchestration perspective. So domain orchestration and WAN networking is where SDN will play a role. So it is not part of this solution directly, but this solution would be complemented by these SDN-based networks.
Yeah, just to add to that, AWS has a Cloud WAN service. So we are currently exploring, as Nitish pointed out, right, integration of netOps.ai with Cloud WAN and how we can create that offering, leveraging AWS's Cloud WAN service.
Yeah, thanks, Shanil. Okay, a question from Ravinder. For far edge DC, we should have more number of DC edge cell site for 5G. How are we managing in AWS? Because in telco, it's easy as we are working for one-on-one and just make the DU cluster with limited server. But for AWS, I hope cost will be a matter. How we build the dish network with far edge and edge data center. It is a long question. Krishna, you would want to?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. For far edge DC, we should have more number of DC near So this is where I think we can, especially in Europe, one of one of our CSPs whom we are working with, they are trying to leverage local zones, at least for the user plane. And we are not specifically looking at vRAN at this time because we have we are primarily focusing on micro RAN deployments. We are focusing on vRAN in the US though, but not in so from the 5G core perspective, we have the ability to deploy in local zones. So that would I think help the localization aspect. I think that was the question which was Parvindra Kumar was asking. Does that answer your question? And we can discuss this offline because there is a lot more nuances here. So we can discuss this offline. Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we'll take I think one more, and we are already above time. Some of these we can reply separately also post this session. So Guru Raj has a question about AWS IoT Greengrass can be used for MEC edge deployment.
We are currently exploring that. We can definitely get back to you, Guru Raj. Let's connect offline. And one last question I also wanted to, I think this is very relevant from Neeraj, was how much time does it take to deliver a use case, right? And one of the reasons why we build this curated offering, we are open to all partners, all ISV partners. But why we specifically focus on a curated offering is that we have a ready-to-go deployment which has been tested in the lab. So what you see here right now, which is flashed on the screen, is actually a deployment which is live, right? In the sense that that's a combination of AWS regions. We have multiple edge instances in both our partner like Casa Labs. We have them in Tech Mahindra labs. So we have that full solution ready to go. The blueprint and the deployment manifests and the whole the pipelines are already in place. So we can definitely tell you how much time it takes for the whole network. But previously it was around 15 to 20 minutes for the AMF, SMF, and RF and the subscriber management functions. But the point is that we have the whole pipelines ready to go. So we can deploy it either for a POC and basically start initiate a call after deploying this component. These are all part of the pipeline which NetOps provides. So we can definitely talk about how much time it takes and for a specific use case and so on and so forth. So the goal is to help do that initial testing before we go for POC or deployments. That is the whole reason why we have invested together in a lab, and we are keeping on developing and adding incremental functions. For instance, last time we showed this demo in MWC Las Vegas, we only had the 5G core and the subscriber management functions, but now we have expanded it to charging functions. We are in the process of integrating with Blue Marble and so on and so forth. So the lab is always expanding with the goal that the customer doesn't have to do the heavy lifting when they deploy the network. I hope that answers your question, Neeraj.
Thanks, Krishna. Yeah, I think we'll end it here. And thanks everyone for joining. It was really an engaging discussion. Hope you were able to gain from all the thoughts shared by the experts here. A recording of this session for sure would be available, so please make use of that. For any, I think there were some questions about GTM and taking it forward. Please get in touch with us for any of your customer requirements. We'll be more than happy to take up those discussions. And yeah, looking forward to engage further. Thanks to all the panelists for your time and for your thoughts, sharing your thoughts today. So thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Good night. Thank you.